Welcome to today's show. Today I have a treat for you. I've been looking forward to this. I have the lovely Mia Northrop here. Welcome, Mia.
Hello, Alpha.
And today we're going to be talking about the concept of life admin and the various the heavy-feeted way that a lot of us sort of trudge through life. And there's just so much, and our modern world has just exponentially exploded that. And if you're a business owner, that gets amplified even more. And Mia has managed to pull together a tremendous book, which I'm in the middle of reading at the moment. And we'll talk about the journey that she and her partner have gone through in terms of how to help other women, specifically mums, navigate that and how their backgrounds have helped them do that. So Mia, again, welcome. And do you want to give a little bit of a history of your journey, where you were and how you've come to get to where you are now,
Yes.
and how you put that tremendous book together, because there's so much in it.
Yeah, sure. So this was very much a necessity is the mother of invention story. So I wrote the book with my longtime friend Dinah. We went to high school together. We both went to uni together. We traveled, had exciting jobs, got married, had kids, went away for a girls' weekend. And, it's Friday night, the cheese has come out, the wine has come out, we're talking, and then we start venting, and then we start ranting about life admin, about how we were just drowning in it. And we were like, all the forms that keep coming from school, like, how do you keep on top of all the forms? And then we were talking about insurance policies and mobile phone plans and how we kept on getting those letters saying, your plan is about to expire. And we're like, we know we're supposed to shop around and find a better deal, but how do you do it? Who's got the time? So we're talking about all these different dimensions of life admin. And we're like, why hasn't someone solved this? Surely, is there an app that we should be getting that we don't know about that's going to fix all this? Or is there like a process to understand how, what does it say on the back of your electricity bill? What is that gobbledygook in that table? And we had a little look and there was nothing. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, there's something in this. Like this is a massive problem. We've all just sat here and had a good whinge about it. And we knew that every mum out there was juggling, the juggling work, the juggling life admin, the juggling parenting. It's a lot. And it was really stressing us out. It was the kind of thing that was keeping us up at night. It was the kind of thing that was causing friction in our households as well, because either things were feeling chaotic or things were feeling unfair because we were doing the bulk of the life admin. So, Dinah and I ended up having lunch a few weeks later, and I said, I haven't stopped thinking about it. And she's like, neither have I. And she's got a background in operations. She was an accountant, and then she went into sort of operations. I worked in user experience design in tech. So both of our roles were really around streamlining processes and coming up with the right tools and apps to get stuff done in a sort of elegant way. And we thought, look, we can solve this problem. This is just a problem space. We know how to get into problem spaces and work out the tasks and work out the tools that make people confident and be able to approach this efficiently. So we're like, all right, where do we begin? Where do we begin? We did a whole ton of research. So we went down this fabulous rabbit hole of reading about habit formation and productivity and time management. And we wanted to come up with sort of some principles or pillars that were going to help sort of pin the whole thing around. It's like, if you can nail these things, then life admin is going to get smoother. And one of the books I read was called Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. I love her. She wrote a book called The Happiness Project. She's written a book about the 4 tendencies and how people respond to expectations. I highly recommend all of the books she's written. And she talked about, if you nail these particular things in terms of your habits, then they are the pillars. And I'm like, okay, we need to find the equivalents for life admin. And that's where we came upon, the digital tools that actually, once you got those digital tools set up, like a digital calendar, a password manager, a to-do list, some cloud storage like Google Drive where you can file things away, things like this, then that actually makes all of your other life admin easier. And then we did a massive survey. We surveyed several hundred people just to sort of talk about, how do you define life admin? What is it? Is it the forms you fill out at school? Is it researching a holiday? Is it looking at your superannuation, doing your tax, looking at your home loan interest rate? And to see what people thought it was and what it wasn't. And that gave us sort of, I guess, the boundaries for us to go, okay, well, these are the topics that people consider life admin. These are the major pain points they have. This is the things that's really driving people bananas. Let's focus here. And then, yeah, we dove into each of those topics, like tax, like wills and powers of attorney, like, meal planning. And we researched the hell out of each of those and started our podcast to start sharing this and keeping ourselves accountable to the project and, being responsible to an audience. And then, we based the book around that same flow. So that in a nutshell is how this whole thing came about. We were essentially trying to save ourselves. And also the mission very quickly became helping out others, and especially working mums, because the pain points are real, the challenges are real, and it takes up way too much time and headspace and causes way too much stress when we all know we'd rather be doing other things.
Oh yes. Well, even on the weekend, or I've been deliberating about it a lot. I mean, I'm one of those people who I research things and I have spreadsheets and I have lists. And so when I was reading a book, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I was still getting ideas from it as well. But I was like, oh yeah, yep. I started doing that. The one thing that I still struggle with is meal planning. I'm like, I get bored eating the same thing. Like if I could eat the same thing every day, that would be fine. But I get bored really easily with lots of things. So I'm like, oh my God, this is headache. And even then I'm vegetarian, borderline vegan. My husband is not. He's a very traditional eater. And my daughter is an 8-year-old semi-fussy eater. She's all right, but she has, like, I make tomato soup from scratch and she eats that pretty much every night. And I was like, do you not want something else? So in a way it's easy, but I'm still making 3 different things every night. Or I'm saying to my husband, you cook your thing, I'm going to do my thing, and I'll take care of our daughter. So, but I still haven't quite got my head around the meal planning. It's hard.
Well, stay tuned, because we are about to do a podcast episode on meal planning when everyone's got different dietary requirements or preferences, because that is a very common challenge. But I was the same. I was really reluctant to come to meal planning. I don't know, it just seemed over the top. It seemed a bit daggy. I really resisted it. But I was also, at the same time, I'd get to 4:30 or 5 o'clock every night and I'd have no idea what's for dinner, and it would stress me out. So luckily my kids, well, 2 things, they are quite happy to eat without a huge amount of variety. And so am I. Like if I go out, then I'll eat with a huge amount of variety. But I co-parent with my kid's dad. He's a fabulous cook. He cooks them all sorts of interesting stuff. We literally eat the same thing every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday. And it actually took my kids a really long time to notice. Like I'm talking months. And Louis like, didn't we have pasta like the other Wednesday? And I'm like, dude, we've been having pasta on Wednesday for about 5 months. So, if there's ways of introducing variety. They have more variety in their lunch boxes, frankly, than they do for dinner. But in terms of saving money, meal planning reduces a lot of food waste. So it is incredibly helpful for that. And also for peace of mind, and also for sharing the cooking in your household. If people actually know what's in the fridge and they're cooking to a list or a plan, then it's a lot easier to share the cooking too.
We've I've got a garden, and I'm one of those people, if I'm going to put the effort into it, I'm going to get something out of it. So it's pretty much all edible. So it's like, there's a couple of flowers. My daughter one day was just like, Mama, why we don't need color in the garden? I was like, yes, we have plenty of green.
It's all green.
And it's pretty much just all various shades of green. And because I love salads, so there's like 4 different types of lettuce and 2 different types of kale, and anyway, and so I was like, oh, we'll plant some flowers. I was like, well, you could get some of the edible flowers. So I was like, no, let's just do pretty color. So we have a couple of like boxes of flowers. But then comes that whole, we'll see what's in the garden. Like on the weekend, we're like, oh my gosh, we've got some sorry, this is really terrible. The English word often escapes me, peas in the garden. And I was like, let's make something with peas. We've got pea pods now. But then we all just started eating them raw, and then that was just gone. But meal planning, I think doing the day of the week. For me, though, I have to always have, there's like a nutritional balance that goes with it. So I've always got to have lots of protein, which, plant-based protein can sometimes be a little bit challenging to balance. But anyway, but I need to get into, so I'm going to focus on the meal planning chapter in your book.
Yeah, and we've been tinkering with AI and meal planning. So one of our recent podcast episodes, we talk about AI, and what is useful there is that you can give it prompts related to nutritional macros that you want to hit.
I'm
So
going to write that
if
down.
you say, give me, 7 nights of dinners with plant-based protein. I want, 30% protein or whatever you're trying to do.
That's a great idea.
It'll spit out some suggestions for you, and it'll link to recipes for you if you want it to. So you
Yeah, well,
can say, you know, give me the recipes and it'll link.
yeah.
Check that out, Alpha.
That is a really good. I think of it for my business, but I don't think of it for my personal life. So when you were doing the survey, what came out? Like for me, it's meal planning. Because like a lot of the financial stuff and all of that, I've to be honest, I've actually trained myself also because I work with clients in that space too, to do a lot of that sort of area. So I'm relatively okay there. But when you did your research, what did you find was the biggest resistance point or the biggest issue that a lot of your respondents had?
Some of the biggest pain points were around decluttering,
Mm-hmm.
just drowning in stuff, whether it was paper clutter, just years of paperwork that had piled up, but also clothes. Often people with kids and the kids are grown out of clothes and they don't have like a rhythm of moving the old clothes out of the house, or toys or books, just stuff. So that was a little surprising to me. I guess this was also just around Marie Kondo and her publishing of her books and everyone thinking about their space in a different way.
Yeah.
So decluttering is still huge. We just did another survey that's still come up as a thing. Just the kids' logistics, dealing with their extracurricular stuff, school stuff, whether it's the comms, whether it's scheduling and shuffling them around to different activities and sharing the load with that, and having sort of a checklist to help you get out the door with everything you need for cricket practice or swim school or whatever it is. So having some systems around that, and also enabling the kids to do a whole lot more, basically helping out more. There were also things around just the comparison shopping, often of energy bills, things like electricity and gas, because they are the things that people have noticed had gone up a lot over time. And the letters are so explicit about saying your thing is about to expire. You need to choose a new thing. And people just thinking, I don't have time. I'm confused, but I also know I'm hemorrhaging money on this. So they're finding that really stressful. The mental load overall was probably the biggest single thing that people talk about. The fact that, there's this monkey mind, this constant brain chatter of all the things that they feel like they should be doing, not feeling like they have any downtime, or when they do have downtime, they're not really present, or they feel guilty, and really wanting to share the load with their partner better because they were starting to feel resentful and sort of overburdened. They were the top things.
Yeah. So because you mentioned a couple of times there about sort of the relationship impact. And that's, I know a lot with money, there's how do you have those conversations about on the financial side, but even on the like doing the stuff side.
Oh, absolutely.
Because as women, we also struggle with the stereotype that we're naggers. And if we ask a man to do something, we're nagging. If he asks us to do something, it's a question. And you're like, okay, how did we suddenly become the naggers and you just became the question askers?
Yeah. And also, surprisingly, in hetero relationships, often a lot of women are kind of like their partner's personal assistants. Like they are the ones, they'll say, oh, can you pick this up for me? Or can you make this appointment for me? Or can you, they might be, recently, I got invited to a 50th from a guy and he's like RSVP to his partner. And I was like, you're the one sending you the invitation out. It's your thing. Like, why? It's just nice. I'm like, great. It's wonderful. I'm sure they talked about it. But at the same time, I'm like, she's not your personal assistant.
Yeah.
So, there can be these interesting roles that people take on. Some of it sort of fueled by societal gender norms, sometimes by sort of who's more capable at different types of things in the household. But it's definitely something that you don't want taken for granted, and that it needs to be a discussion, and it's a sensitive one, like with things to do with money, having to understand where someone else is coming from and trying to solve it as an external problem to be solved, rather than pointing fingers and blaming and doing the you should, you never kind of game.
Anytime you use the word you, instantly it's like, oh, It's a little bit like red flag to a bull, but yeah, and it's having that. But I think calling it out, like you said before, with like Marie Kondo, she called out the concept of clutter, and it's like, you know, it's okay to look around your space, and you can. It's strange to think that we would need almost permission to declutter, or not even permission, but awareness that, you know, you're not your partner's personal assistant. But sometimes it is necessary, because you're just like, hang on a minute, why am I doing this all the time? Why is this always on me? Why can't, you know, like, and but then you can't come at it from a perspective. You're like, all right, let that emotion kind of pass, and then come at it from the, let's talk about how we can both do this together for our family. You know? And share this, so that, you know, I don't feel like your mum or personal assistant or both. You can be a fully fledged grown up.
Yeah. The life admin is quite invisible. Like, we talk a lot, if you think about sort of, you know, we talk about domestic labor. People talk about housework, so cooking, cleaning, laundry. They'll talk about childcare and who's looking after the kids. But life admin is kind of this third piece of the domestic labor puzzle that people haven't really talked about. They're like, well, you know, when the bills come, who is paying them? And when you notice that the gutter is leaking, who is organising someone to fix that? And when you realise that so-and-so needs to be dropped off at 8 a.m. on Friday and then get over there at 10 a.m., who is organising those logistics? Because that's not housework and it's not childcare. But someone still has to, you know, plan for it, think about it, anticipate it, and act on it. And that's where the mental load and life admin comes in. And the mental load really is more about life admin than housework or childcare a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that's where some of the tools in your book and the downloads that come with it are really handy too, because if we keep it up here, it just gets bigger and bigger and grows, and almost the idea of it is worse sometimes than the reality. So as soon as you start to get it out of your head and onto a page or onto a chart or into an online calendar or schedule, some way to categorize it and put it down, the mental load diminishes. Something else will come in, but then you start to learn the principles of how to manage it. And you're like, is it on the calendar? It's not on the calendar. And like my daughter and I went to Adelaide recently, and my husband kept on asking me, you know, when we were going and when we were coming back. It's like, it's on the calendar. It's like right there in the kitchen. It's on the calendar.
Yeah.
So it can't be that. And I put stuff in his phone now. So I'll actually do meeting invites and send him invites to stuff. So he can't say, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. And that's really a great example of like adding to someone's mental load where you're supposed to be you're the calendar for them. It's like, don't give me that job. There's enough going around in my mind without having to be responsible and answer your questions and remind you of things. Like, we have the tools. But you raise a really good point, Alpha, about people not really having like a mental model of what life admin is. Like, what are the categories? What are the boundaries? Like, what's in, what's out? And that's one of the first things we set out in the book. We literally made a diagram that says, all right, well, these are the big 4 buckets. There's your sort of personal affairs, which is things like your wills and your tax and your super and, you know, all your health records. There's the stuff that goes on in your household, which is the meal planning, the decluttering, you know, the stuff to do with the kids. Then there's all of this comparison shopping stuff that you need to do, which is all those service providers and plans and premiums and policies. And then there's actually the fun stuff, like your social life, or if you celebrate things like Christmas or Diwali, people have to organize those things. People have to organize trips away. People have to organize buying gifts. Now, there's this whole sort of social fun thing that's also a factor of life admin. So when you can start to think about things in those 4 buckets, you can go, okay, all right, this is, and actually, and we also sort of found alignment with those 4 buckets in terms of their payoff. So often with the personal affairs stuff like tax and wills and dealing with super, a lot of that, if you get that nailed, then you're going to have really good peace of mind, because they're things you procrastinate about, kind of worry about. There might be a financial payoff too. Obviously, all the comparison shopping stuff is all about saving money. So if money is a concern, like that's where you would start shopping around, getting better deals, and you're going to save money and feel better about that. And then some of it is really around that household friction and harmony. So the things around streamlining your house and just getting that rhythm humming are really going to ease each day, ease the week, and make you feel like you've got a lot more ease in your life.
Yeah. And you touched on that as well. There's some things like your wills and your powers of attorney and even your super to a certain extent, they're relatively set and forget. Like you just have to put in the effort, and then they're done, and you can park it and go, okay, mental, unless there's, like you also point out in the book, changes, like if there's a separation or there are certain things that trigger that you have to look at them again. But for the most part, the effort you put in sits there and it just keeps going and you don't have to worry about it. But that repetitive stuff, it's even like the cleaning. Like we had a cordless vacuum, and it was great until it wasn't, because the battery and all of that kind of stuff. So then I was next vacuum cleaner, like, oh, we'll go back to the barrel one. Well, it sits in the cupboard for about a month until like Saturday. I'm like, I'm so sick of the floors, and I spend 2 hours cleaning the house when it would normally take me like half an hour if I did it in bits. So on the weekend, I made the decision, I'm going to go back and get another cordless vacuum, slightly better model. It's newer now, so I'm sure they'll be better. This battery to last longer, because damn it, I'm so sick of having the mental load of I've got to go get the vacuum cleaner out and the extension cord, and because we've got quite a long house, so I've got to like plug it in 3 different times. Not that, I mean, it's like first world problems really, but so I've just like, you know what, and it already feels so much better. I haven't got the vacuum yet because I only just ordered it on the weekend, but I was like, oh, this is already making me feel so much better.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because it's about setting up your environment to support the stuff that you have to do. And it's something that we often do really well in our work lives. Like, we make sure we have the right tools, that our desk is set up how we like it to, you know, either promote positive behaviors or just support the tasks we have to do. And at home, you know, that vacuum cleaner is a perfect example. If you don't have the things you need to just do stuff efficiently and just remove the obstacles so that you actually do it, it's a big deal. There's lots of things, sort of tolerations we might have that we're kind of putting up with, that if you sort of step back and notice them and go, God, if I just had an extra phone charger just here, then that issue we have with the phone always being dead or everyone fighting over the chargers would just go away. Plus, I've spent $8 to get another phone charger. So little things like that, especially with life admin, which is why we talked about having the right tools, like having a password manager, just having a shared calendar, so all your family can have a single source of truth of what's happening. That removes a whole bunch of those obstacles that make it hard to do it, or, you know, suggest that things don't get done at all because it's just too hard.
Yeah. One of the things I tend to struggle with is the amount of ways we can be communicated with. I've got so many WhatsApp groups that I'm in, including a school one. Actually, it's 2 school ones. And even for business, there's ones. And then there's Facebook Messenger and Instagram Messenger. And I've got other tools as well. And it gets a little overwhelming. How do you suggest like managing that side of it?
Yeah, I'm with you with the overwhelm of someone from my daughter started at a new school last year, and they started to use oh, now I've totally blanked on what it's called. Let me flick and have a look at it. A whole other app. I'm like, what the hell is this? Well, they're using Telegram. I'm like, why are we using this? Oh, can't we just use one of the existing other 17 tools that we have? Anyway, so I hear you. I guess there's a few things. On the life admin front, we do suggest that you have a separate life admin email address so that you can point all of the comms from schools, extracurricular activity organizations, the electricity company, the water company, all the government, everyone can just send all their comms to one email address that is out of your personal email address. And especially if you're in a relationship, in a couple, then that sort of puts it into neutral territory, and you can talk about who is actioning what on that email address instead of it just being in your personal stuff, and therefore it's likely that you're going to end up doing it.
Yes.
In terms of all the other comms tools, I'm a big encourager of just calling out, it's time to archive something, and I'll just leaving groups. When it's done, it's done. Often there'll be like WhatsApp groups created for someone's birthday party just to, coordinate the comms, and it's like, as soon as that party is done, I'm out of there. Delete, goodbye, archive. And I hope people realize that that's just a maintenance issue. It's not a personal issue.
No. Well, I actually turned off notifications on Telegram because some of the groups I was in was just getting too much. And then a friend tried to contact me and I wasn't getting back to her. So she just texted me. I was like, see, no, if you need to get me, you'll get me.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. sequestering them all into a certain folder on a whatever screen, not necessarily your first screen. I don't have notifications turned on for anything. I don't have badges on for my email or my text so I can freak out to see if there's 89 messages. Like, it's just stressful. There's certain times of the day that I go in and I scan that stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
because you can't switch off. Like, we went overseas for a month, and I thought I'd turned all the various like pop-ups and things off on my phone, and I actually even decommissioned one of my email addresses, but I still got notifications. And we were staying at my father-in-law's, who never used to have Wi-Fi, which I actually really liked, because like, I am not contactable, I am not turning on international roaming, but he had Wi-Fi now, so I was still getting stuff, which was a little bit okay, because I thought I'm slightly less overwhelmed when I come back after 4 weeks. But it was just funny, the attempt to try and reduce that constantly onness.
Yeah, the distraction is not helpful. And I find it so curious how some people respond to technology and they sort of feel obligated, and especially with different generations. So like my mum, obviously, she's in her 70s. She just, most of her adult life, there was a landline. This is such new technology, and yet she has all her notifications happening. Her phone is pinging and dinging the whole time, and she will look at it and respond to it every time. And I'm like, you don't have to pick up, Remember when you used to be at home and the phone would ring and you weren't there, and didn't matter? Like, you don't have to respond.
No.
Do it when it's you're not in the middle of a dinner conversation or whatever. But she just doesn't have that relationship with it.
No, I remember being at a cafe once, and I was sitting there and I deliberately left my phone in the car, because I was like, I just want to sit here. I was just on my own. I thought, I'm just going to enjoy a few moments of peace. It was around a bookshop, and there were these 4 sort of older women who looked like they were in their 60s, heading towards 70s. They all had their phones face side up next to them on the table. And, somebody would get up to do something and they'd check their phones. I was like, are you serious? I was like, you didn't even grow up with this.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting.
Funny how that's happened.
So much research to say how, what a negative pull that just having a phone on the table, whether it's face up or on or whatever, just actually changes the dynamic of how people interact and relate. So, I guess having worked in technology for most of my career, I am hyper aware of how much the design of technology and software is made to sort of interrupt and distract and try and get your attention the whole time. So I feel really vigilant about putting it away.
Yeah.
For both myself and the kids, there's too much research about the negative connotations, or the negative consequences, I should say. Yeah. Amazing devices, totally useful, couldn't live without them, but definitely need some boundaries in place to make them work for you, not against you.
Yeah, well, and it's also that what we're showing our children too. I remember my daughter, I can't remember, she was little, like 3 or 4, and at one point she's just like, Mama, can you put your phone away? And I was like, oh my God, I was like, I'm getting called out on this by a little kid. So I'll often have my phone somewhere else in the house. And of course, at her age now, already at 8, some of her friends are starting to get phones, and they use their parents' phones to message their friends. And I was just, oh my gosh, my daughter hasn't asked for anything like that yet. Although she did say to me, oh, Mama, what age can I be when I get a phone? I was like, 18. I was like, but obviously that's not realistic.
Yeah. I think, our phones are such powerful little devices. And it's one of the things that we actually enjoyed when we were writing the book, is saying, look, you've got these powerful devices in your pocket, use them for good. Let them do the heavy lifting on some of this life admin stuff that is tedious or boring or repetitive, because there's amazing apps that are really powerful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, knowing which apps you might want to be removing or making access to a little harder, putting some boundaries around it, also very healthy for our tech use.
Yeah. And we don't always need to know. Like I have clients who are constantly checking things like their bank accounts or their superannuation balances or whatever, and it makes them nuts. It's like with anything. I was like, you don't need to look at it daily. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Let's just, make a decision, park it, and then you could look at it again in 6 months, or just look at it once a year, but definitely not every month.
Yeah.
Depends on what it is, of course, but yes, otherwise it can just make you crazy.
Yeah, especially the last few years. It's not half the time, it's not a pretty story.
Very.
I think that's an interesting thing to to flesh out there is that idea with some of these tasks. People weren't sure about how often they should be doing them. Like, how often should I be looking at my superannuation fund and deciding whether these investment options are the right ones for me? You know, how often should I be looking at my credit card and deciding if there's a better fit for me? Is this interest rate appropriate? And are there other features and things out there? So one of the things that we did put some time into is researching, you know, what are the triggers for reviewing this stuff? Because if you're trying to review everything all the time, it becomes really overwhelming and you're likely to not do any of it.
Yeah. Well, my triggers are usually, because I pay my insurances annually. So when I get they give you like 6 weeks notice when it's about to renew. So it's like, okay, this is the opportunity for me now to go have a look around. That's and perfect. What I often do is I'll actually call, like I'll do a little bit of research because there's a lot of comparison websites out there. But I'll actually call my insurance company and then just negotiate. And it's, we're kind of taught that the suppliers are like hallowed somehow. And I was like, yeah, no, but we're the customer. Without us, they don't exist. And if we don't ask for a better deal, and this is where I think the younger generation are getting a little bit better at this. Our generation is we're still a little bit like, oh, you know, I grew up in the days, and you probably as well, where you had one provider for energy.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't get to choose.
Yeah, there was a state electricity commission. That was it. You got one bill. There was one plan.
Now we have to choose, like going into the milk aisle and going, holy moly, there's even now in the plant-based milks, there's like 10 different choices. So to be honest, I make my own because I'm just like, I don't even want to try and figure it out. I'll just make it.
That's it. I mean, these markets have all been privatized, and the way they're supposed to work is based on competition, and they're relying on the consumer to switch, to actually move between competitors to keep them competitive. So if you don't switch, you know, it's not going to work. So yes, they are fully expecting you to ring up every year and have a chat, say, what can you do for me? I noticed that XYZ provider is doing this, can you match it? Or I'm going to switch, or whatever it is. Getting comfortable having that conversation is very much part of adulting. There are simple scripts in the book to help people get there, but I think knowing that there are literally call centers with people waiting for your call to have that conversation, they're equipped for it, they're expecting it, so you don't have to feel sheepish about contacting them.
They don't even have to talk to their manager. They've already been authorized.
That's it. And half the time you can do it online. Like you just, as you said, there are comparison sites out there. You can have a look at a few alternatives, decide which one's better for you, and just switch. But, you know, the minimum thing is to call your current provider and just go, what can you do for me? What are we looking at?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, oh my goodness, so nice to have that all in one place. So how do people find out more about what you do? How can they delve into this beyond the book? So the book is called Life Admin Hacks.
Life Admin Life Hacks is the book. We also have an online course called The Art of Adulting. So that's a program where you come and we work through online lessons. We have a weekly Q&A session and a Facebook group, so you can work through some of these topics, set up this infrastructure, set up these tools, ask all your questions so that you get things set up perfectly for your situation, and come out the other end with just this sort of humming life admin, these systems and processes that are sustainable and repeatable. So we also have jump onto lifeadminlifehacks.com to find the Art of Adulting course. We also have our podcast, Life Admin Life Hacks. And we cover all these kinds of topics and things like AI, and we're going into climate resilience, things to do to cope with that, all the sort of contemporary things that spring from this sort of foundation of life admin stuff. So we talk about everyday life admin and then life event life admin, like moving house or having a baby and all the other things we have to cope with as adults.
Yeah, I know sometimes adulting feels hard. I have to, even when you're on top of it, sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, because I look at my daughter and, you know, she just like has not a care in the world for the most part, apart from, you know, she's got a musical production at school tomorrow, so she's a bit nervous about that. But apart from that, you're like, oh, I don't care if I leave that bowl there. And I'm like constantly like, can you bring your bowl back to the kitchen?
We don't have a solution for that, unfortunately. The plates that are littered around my house at any given time. Super annoying. I think that's, you know, we recognize that. We just wanted to give people their time back and their headspace back so that you can have fun doing other things. You can just relax and that adulting is either, doesn't feel so hard, or life admin's taking up a much smaller proportion of your time.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And we'll put all the links of how to get to the Art of Adulting course and all the other links for Mia and Dinah in there as well. And yeah, thank you so much. It's been really helpful. And I'm hoping everyone listening got a lot out of that too and have some ideas, and we'll jump in at the very least and get the book, because I'm just at the part of the chapters where you're going through all the comparison things. And I've started to get through that, but it's so many ideas and so many great things to do and tools to do it. And like, you tell people how to do things too, which is really helpful.
Oh, that's good. You're about to save some serious money. Thank you so much, Alpha. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mia. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.